Tassin we got the Wizards going West Coast and sort of cruising along and playing some great ball, playing some great hockey. We got the Terps this week doing the Big Ten thing, spring training rocking. And I got a guy that's in the middle of all of it. You catch him on Comcast Sportsnet, and I'm certainly watching more Wizards these days, plenty of Caps and plenty of Terps as well. We welcome Chick Hernandez back on to WNST. You can follow his journey, of course, at Comcast Sports, Mid-Atlantic, and CSNWashington.com, as well as on Twitter, Chick at CSN. Still owes me Cuban food somewhere here in the corridor. And, dude, I'm not going to let you forget that now. I mean, once an offer, always an offer, my brother.
I offered, absolutely. I had no offer to you, though. I offered to your wife.
You know what? She brought it up when I said, I don't have Chick on the show. She's like, he owes us Cuban food. Make sure you're in.
Okay.
Hey, man, what a time, right? I mean, look, not just for spring training because, at some point this Baltimore-Washington thing, it is what it is a dozen years into this. Both have their fan bases. Both have been very competitive. And then, obviously, the football combine side. But night after night now, I mean, I don't know what it's like to be Ted or Zach Leone's, just where you got the Wizards and the Caps playing simultaneously. I got the Terps on the other channel. It's been a really, really good run. And for old guys like you and me, it haven't been many like this, right? I mean, really.
Well, I've said for the last, 15 years that there's something in the water that we can't really take prosperity because something's going to happen. So
that's for
right
Philadelphia.
Now,
come on, Chick.
No, seriously. I mean, the Caps have been really good for different years, and then they get to the playoffs and they crap the bed. I don't think that's the case this year. The Wizards, same deal. They're playing at a level, and they made a move last week to get Bojan Bogdanovic, who's been spectacular. They're making the right moves. If the backcourt stays healthy, I think they got a great chance at advancing. So it's a different time right now in this area, and I host Wizards and Capitals pre- and post-game shows, all that jazz, and it's just exciting. It's beyond it, really, for me, because I've been through the horrible times, and to see what's going on right now, and I think both those franchises in particular are feeding off of each other. They're so good at home. I think there's almost an unspoken competition of who can be better, and we haven't had that in a long time. But I say all of this with my legs crossed and my fingers crossed.
Well, you know what is interesting because we got a president making war on the media right now, and I've had listen. I mean, Daniel Snyder has made war on various factions of anything media related. Peter Angelos. I mean, clearly, I won't have a press pass on opening day because I've had the audacity to tell the truth. But it is amazing how guys like you and me, and take in 99% of the guys who cover the DC sports scene, whether it's on the Redskins side or the National, it's so much better for us when the teams win, right? I mean, we don't roll out of the side of the bed looking for a 58-win Orioles season or a 22-win Wizards season. Those are the years where it's not any fun at all. And I would say that when things are going well, it really, for me, 25 years into this, and I know you've been doing this a long time too, these are the ones you remember. I mean, you really get the vibe, and maybe not as much with the Wizards because of LeBron and Golden State and, those barriers that are going to be there for them. But you get the feeling like there's a legitimate chance for a run, some excitement, and maybe a championship or maybe a finals or maybe LeBron turns an ankle in a second round. You can come up with a scenario, but you got to be there. You got to be in the playoffs. And, on the Ravens side up here, that's a big problem. When you're not in the playoffs, you can't win.
Yeah, I mean, look, the last time that the Wizards faced the Cavaliers had to have a ridiculous three-point bank shot from LeBron in order to survive in overtime and then eventually win it. I think, and you talked about it, I mean, I've been in the business 30 years. We've now moved from just reporting the news to a more, as you are doing right now, a talk show format. It's so much better when they're playing well, doing well. I will be honest and say that because of certain teams I covered, the Washington Redskins, when they sucked, they were still unbelievable to talk about because when they sucked, the drama off the field was so high that it was still tremendous fodder. But I would prefer to talk about them winning, and it's much easier to get, as you well know, get players talking in a positive manner, and that's so much better. It's so much more exciting, and you go home feeling pretty good. There have been stretches of years where you dread waking up and going, what's today gonna bring? And that's not the case right now.
Well, okay, let's start at the top here. Let's start with the Wizards. What deep down, what's your real passion here? If you had to have one of any of these teams win, and I'm going down the check boxes here, the only team that's won's the Ravens, right? Well, the Terps won 15 years ago now, but,
Correct.
modern era of all of these teams, the Ravens are the only ones that really have a parade in and around it. Look, I go back with the Bullets, right? The Hogs, I'll give you all that. But of this modern era, who do you want to see win?
That's a great question.
If only one could win.
Yeah, if only one could win, I would make it I would say Redskins, because that's
your
the
team.
Only
okay.
That's the only beat that I really cover on a daily basis. Well, during the season, from training camp until the end of the season, that's the one where I'm out at Redskin Park every Tuesday or Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and the weekend. So that would be nice, because I've seen guys who have toiled. I've seen guys who should have been on winning squads and weren't. Wizards, I used to do the sidelines for. It'd be nice to have it. It'd be great. But I think in the town that I live in, the Redskins are the needle mover. Now, I'm not saying that the Caps and the Wizards, if they don't get on a run, that this town won't get behind them, because they will.
With the Wizards, Chick, how many times did you ever report to work thinking that team could win a championship? Look, they're pretty good, right? They're a 3 seed. They just won again on Sunday night. They're going west. There's a lot of enthusiasm around the team. But even now, even with Bogdanovic, I don't know. I don't feel like they can really win. But for 30 years, they haven't really been in the conversation of they were really going to beat Magic Johnson or Larry Bird or Michael Jordan or David Robinson. Just go through the list of any of those, the bad boys, any of those teams. It's been a long time since it was sort of conceivable for the Wizards to win, right? Sort of like being a Browns fan right now. You don't feel like we're not eligible. We're relegated in some way, right?
Sure. But I think, as you alluded to earlier, if LeBron turns an ankle, there's no telling, because this team is. They have 5 starters who average in double figures, and you add Bojan Bogdanovic and John Wall. For all his bluster the first couple of years where he wanted to be the best, he is one of the best guards in the league. The guy had 19 assists the other night. He's making everybody around him better, and so you get into a postseason where you catch fire. Here's what I can't. The first time in my lifetime of covering this team, it's the first time I can walk into a postseason and say, I can't say they won't win it all, because I think it's possible.
He is Chick Hernandez. You can follow his journey out on Twitter, Chick at CSN, and, of course, at Comcast Sports Mid-Atlantic. All right, moving along here. The Caps are, if I had to bet on any of these teams this year, including the Nationals and the Orioles and either of the football teams, the Caps are the team. I don't want to say they should win, Chick. I've been around the bend once or twice, with this thing. But, boy, this is fun to watch, and every night they have a chance, and every night in, late April they're going to have a chance. They pick up Shattenkirk. They got the best goalie on the planet. They got the best player on the planet. Backstrom's winning a game this night. Johansson wins it. Fourth line's playing well. And then there's Barry Trotz, who is the resident genius that has not been crowned as such thus far.
Right. Well, look, they're a juggernaut right now. They are an offensive juggernaut. And the addition of Shattenkirk, that's huge defensively. That's huge if they end up playing the Pittsburgh Penguins somewhere in the playoffs, because it's been notoriously a bad matchup. But Shattenkirk could be just the pin in their side. And Barry Trotz, as you said, unproven in the postseason when it comes to the Washington Capitals. Bruce Boudreau would get the Caps there, and then there would always be something that would change. I don't know what it was, but he would change a line, tweak here, tweak there, that ended up kind of just botching the chemistry. I don't see Barry Trotz doing that, and they have so many guys. It's like, they're just like the Wizards, for heaven's sakes. They have so many guys that are producing for this team that and as we always talk about in the playoffs, if a goaltender stands on his head, well, guess what? Braden Holtby's been doing that all season long, and his backup Grubauer, not too bad either. So one of those two guys, and it's going to be Holtby, obviously, but you get that guy going into the playoffs, you can ride that pony for all he's worth.
Chick, then there is the Redskins thing that went on last. At this point, when the circus comes to town, it never leaves town, right? And they've had success. They obviously have a competent coach. They had a quarterback that was competent. They've drafted relatively well to get better players on the field. And yet this scenario happens last week where, let's be honest, when lips are moving in that organization, you really have to, much like where we are right now, down the street on Pennsylvania Avenue, you have to say, let me research that a little further. Can you shed any light onto this? Because one thing I'll say, I mean, I've been trapped up here with the Orioles for 24 years now, with this goof that owns a team up here running around. I would not, it wouldn't be any fun for my life to be around the Ravens if they had been like the Redskins the last 20 years.
Right.
And I don't mean winning or losing. I just mean the amount of joy that goes along with, you've already pointed out, you want them to win. You started the program with that. And then when they say things, maybe you believe it, maybe you don't, right?
Well, here's the deal. I mean, when they hired Scott McCloughan as the GM, we all thought, wow, they actually got a football guy in there. There's no circus clown named Vinny Serrato doing this thing, right? So McCloughan comes in, and it's hunky-dory. He's had a fair drafts, some busts and some not-so-busts, whatever.
They've been a competitive team, though. He's been a good addition in that way.
No question.
Okay.
This last the week or so with the combine and McCloughan not being there, and when it really, it's the fish smells, and that's what's happening here, at least from my vantage point. What I don't understand is you had Chris Cooley, former Redskin, now part of the Redskins organization in their media department. He's on the radio and speculating that he thinks Scott may be drinking again. Scott is on record as saying he's had a problem with alcohol in the past. He's lost 2 jobs because of it. So now here comes your guy who says on the radio, I think Scott's drinking again or maybe drinking again. Well, you've thrown that out there, and nobody from the organization says, hold on a second. Chris Cooley, you're off the air. You're suspended. Nobody says, hey, whatever Chris Cooley says is his own thing. Nobody had Scott McCloughan's back.
Well, I was going to say, Springsteen has a song, We Take Care of Our Own, and you know as well as I do that that's part of the demand, that's part of the code, not just with the Redskins or the Ravens or the NFL or in any organization. We went through the bad side of that with Ray Rice around here a couple of years ago.
Sure.
Organizations get embarrassed taking care of their own. And, the truth, I don't want to say it always comes out because, hell, Chick, you know as well as I do, even when the truth comes out right now, there's a large faction of people who don't believe the truth, even when it's put in front of them. We got guys questioning whether the planet is circular or not, dude. I mean, seriously, that's where we are at this point. But in the case of the Redskins, and, I deal with this with the Orioles, when it's always sideways, and when there's always this seeming lack of transparency, and in the end, these people have repeatedly been caught up in lies, half-truths, half-bakes, some sort of resistance. I just thought the last week was sort of tacky. I would think that, dare I say, some high-level guy in the Ravens organization at some issue like this, it would be addressed, it would be moved on. You would at least be pretty sure they're telling you the truth. And, if McCloughan has an issue right now, why would they just say, he's had an unfortunate skip? I mean, God, I had a mother who's an alcoholic. I had a father who's an alcoholic. I mean, I've had drug addicts all around me. I'm from Dundalk, chick. There's no, there's honor in saying I need help and I'm going to get it. It seems to work in Hollywood and rock and roll, and quite frankly, it's worked in sports, right?
But the thing is, we don't even know. We don't know because I think tacky is a good word for it, and we needed clarification from somewhere, and no one said a word.
And you know what? If the guy's misskipped, right? And I'm not one of the bleeding hearts because, again, I had 2 parents that were alcoholics. Let me say this. If the guy really has had a problem, why wouldn't he be the first one to admit, hey, I got a problem, and and it's back, and, if that really were the case, if I'm a Redskins fan or if I'm a human being, a fan of football evaluators, I'd say, all right, denial's a river in Egypt, right? If that really is the case, we could all accept that. We could all live with. We're going to take a little time out. Maybe I'll be back in my chair May 1st, or I've had media friends of mine been suspended, and now they're sitting back in seats doing what they're doing, and that's not a bad thing. Redemption. You've been around Tiger Woods, right? I mean, redemption's a good story in our society.
It's a good story, and we've all had some form of it. I think in some form or fashion, whether it's been whatever it is. I've been fired from a job for making a grievous mistake, and I came back, and somebody gave me the chance to come back once they heard my story. And so, we all look for it, and I think it should be there. I would like to have clarification for what's going on. The other side of it is there's been speculation. We'll use the word speculation that Bruce Allen, the president of the Redskins, not a big fan of of sharing the spotlight. And certainly Scott McCloughan got a major spotlight when this team, won the East, when this team was back in the playoffs, all of that jazz.
He is Chick Hernandez. You can follow his journey, and many do at Comcast Sports and that Chick at CSN. And, of course, busy this week. Dude, I see you at Terps games, and I know you got some Terp in you as well. And, these are pretty good times, right? This is a week where all of that ACC Big Ten thing, and I've been talking about this for a couple of weeks, I was never the bleeding heart like they shouldn't leave. I'm a businessman, so I understand that. I also understand loyalty. But I never thought the Big Ten was an abject mistake or that it would be a failure, that it would be a bad thing. I was very much let's give it some time.
Sure.
Michigan State, Indiana, Michigan, Northwestern, Iowa. These are real places. It's a real. The flights are going to suck. You're not going to play Duke and Carolina anymore. But I'll say this weekend in D.C., it's going to be a BFD, I think. I think they're going to come in from everywhere for the cherry blossoms and some hoops in D.C.
Yeah, it's going to be great having the Big Ten here, and obviously it's a great boon for the Maryland Terrapins who've got the double bye. They don't travel, so on paper they get to walk into this thing a little bit. But it is. It's nice to have. I love tournament time, whether it's conference tournament time or March Madness. Back in the day, the ACC tournament, despite, look, I would have conversations with Gary Williams, the old Hall of Fame coach, who hated going to Carolinas to have to compete against the Dukes and the North Carolinas and NC States of the world. But he also privately was like, you know what, I don't mind, because if I go there and I do well, I'm sticking it to them. This is different now that the Big Ten goes all over the joint, and it's going to be nice to have it here in D.C., I think the city will embrace it, certainly. I know the cigar bars around town will, certainly. I'll be there.
Hey, Maryland has a chance to win. I mean, that's the other thing. This is an up year for Maryland in a year where, I think this time last year when they got bounced out in 16, and it was truly a disappointment given the amount of talent they had there that didn't mesh. I thought that'll be as much talent as they're ever going to get. I mean, Turgeon's not going to get that kind of center again to stop by for 4 months and play, along with a sophomore guard who's a rock star and a couple of real transfers from real ACC schools that got on the floor at Duke. But it didn't happen, and I thought, they might be a 10 seed for this tournament. Not really. I mean, and I see no reason they can't win on Friday night and make it somewhat of a party over the weekend. And then, of course, the big party comes out where we're seeding where they're going to be in this dance, and for that, I'm grateful. Again, it's made for a great, great spring for all of us, I think.
I think, because I remember the heartache of last year when it was over, and you knew that certain guys were leaving the program. You thought, where is this team going to be? And then lo and behold, you get these three freshmen who, for the first really 2/3 of the season played out of their mind, not like freshmen, which kind of carried them because Melo Trimble was having some shooting woes. But Melo also was a guy who embraced those young guys. And the win they had, on Saturday, the great, 3-point shot from Melo, despite the fact that he wasn't shooting particularly well, but shot that ball with confidence. You got a whole week of getting yourselves ready, and Mark Turgeon's pretty darn good at getting his teams ready for certain opponents. So it's the fun of it, though, Nestor, is that we don't know what's going to happen, but there's such a different air when you walk into the building and you see the different banners and the different fans from across the country. It's just such a I don't know what do you want to call it, a basketball feel to it. It's spectacular.
Chick, last but never least here, I know golf is one of your passions. I mean, we're only a couple weeks out on the Masters now, and I know the trip to Scotland and all that stuff. Tell me how you know Tiger Woods, because every time he comes through, you get time with him. I've only had one entree with him ever. He was the biggest Richard Head I had ever encountered at that point. I sat next to him at a Hootie and the Blowfish concert in 1996 on New Year's Eve with my then girlfriend at the joint in Hard Rock in Las Vegas. Hootie and the Blowfish was the biggest band going at that point. Hold My Hand and all that stuff. They were on their second album, and they were big sports guys with Dan Marino and all that stuff. And Tiger had literally just been named sort of Man of the Year as this 18-year-old man-child or whatever. He'd just been on the cover of Sports Illustrated as the Man of the Year or whatever. He hadn't won a Masters yet or any of that. And, he wasn't cool to me. So anytime I see people that are cool with Tiger, I figure, he kind of shut it off kind of early, kind of like Phelps, you know what I mean? He hasn't lived a normal life in any way, yet he's incredibly comfortable with you.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, it's like Michael Jackson. You know, you're talking child prodigy. It's almost impossible for them, those type of folks, to live a normal life. You know, they're always, you know, the eyes are roaming. They're looking for that person that's coming up to them. And so it's a little bit different. My relationship with him just really started at the beginning when they first announced that the tournament was coming to D.C., and we all got a chance to sit down with them. And I noticed we all went down to the national building, to broadcast building, to interview him. We all got 5 minutes with him, and I noticed my colleagues, a great deal of them, were like nervous about this, and I couldn't figure out why. And maybe it's because I was a little older in the business.
Well, he was intimidating even as a 19-year-old, right? Literally.
Sure. But this is, this is what, 10 years ago, and he walked into the room for our thing, and we just happened to have almost the same suit and shirt and tie. It was a gray suit, purple shirt, purple tie. But but he wasn't making eye contact when he sat down. And I said to him, "Nice ensemble." And I got nothing. So I just kept looking at him.
So you know what I'm talking about. I got that for 2 hours and 20 minutes at a Hootie and the Blowfish concert on New Year's Eve with champagne.
Sure.
Yeah, okay.
So he looks up at me finally as I'm staring at him, and then he realizes what I have said, and he now gets it. And he goes, "Oh." And I go, "Man, you are quick." And at that point, his people around him looked at me like, what did he just say to him? But Tiger, at that moment in time, realized I wasn't intimidated, and it was, we're going to go at it. And it was great because he loves to dig people, right? All the guys on tour know he's he's an infamous trash talker, and he loves to dig at you. And we started right there. And literally from that moment on, the next time I saw him, he was wearing this chartreuse, I want to say chartreuse. It was a fuchsia shirt. And I said, a lot of guys can carry off fuchsia. You're not one of them. And his people again turned like, what did he just say? And without blinking, Tiger said to me, and I'm in all black. He goes, normally black is slimming. And it was on, right? And that's the relation we've had ever since, So
I like that.
He's been that for, and I know people have had horror stories, and I know people in his inner circle are much closer. We just happen to have a professional relationship, and he knows that when we get together, and he knows I'm going to ask. I sat down with him after the car accident and all that jazz. He knows
it wasn't an accident, but in the end, it was an accident. Yeah,
correct. Right. Well, he didn't mean to hit. He didn't mean to hit it. Okay, but he knew, and he knows, and his people know that I am going to ask the serious question about whatever it is, and I'm also going to give him golf, and I'm going to give him golf tournament questions as well. So he knows it's coming. I just don't. I'm not an attacker. I go at it, and I do that with all my interviews. I try to go a different avenue to get what I need to get without, being a jackass about it.
You know what's interesting is, your relationship with Tiger Woods, like I noticed it. I have a special relationship with Mike Tomlin from the Steelers, and people say, well, how would that happen? And I'm like, well, when I met him, I told him I hated the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I never met, I said I never met Bill Cowher on purpose because I didn't want to like him. And he said, I don't want you to like me.
Yeah,
and that's where it started. And, next thing you know, we're drinking together and telling stories. So, that's the way life goes sometimes. Chick, it was an absolute pleasure to have you on. It's a great time, I think, to be alive here in the corridor. Between Caps games, they're going to keep us up late later in the week. Terps are going to keep us up late on Friday night. So eat your Wheaties, drink your caffeine, smoke your cigars, get ready for golf season here. We're going to have a long little run at CSN, I think, into April and May with the two Leones' teams, I think, right?
I hope so. Nestor, great being with you, man.
Chick, my pleasure. Chick Hernandez, nobody does it better out of Comcast Sportsnet than he. Chick at CSN is the way to find him. You can find me out in the Bahia Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world, tweeting, opining, saying things on LinkedIn and Snapchat and Instagram and Facebook Live, as well as out on our Twitter feed. And the Bahia Toyota Audio Vault's there 24 hours a day. For anything you miss around here, you can find us out there. Just download that TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear each and every day from anywhere that you are. The morning newspaper ships to your email inbox at 7 a.m. each and every morning. That's brought to you by our friends at Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. It's still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life there. And last but never least, if there is breaking news, and I would think between Ravens free agency, we got backside of the combine, we got Terps, we got Caps, we got Wizards, the Orioles in spring training with cuts. We're going to have some news coming your way. If it's breaking news and you get it first, it's going to be on the WNST Tech Service. That's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Dennis Colatzos will be here on Thursday from 3 until 5, driving you home. Nasty at WNST.net reaches me. Our London trip is on sale. We're 2 weeks out on the Barry Trotz appearance here in Baltimore. We're going to make that announcement a little later on in the week. It's going to be Monday, March 20th. We're going to rock our red with Coach Trotz up here in Baltimore. We'll get some more details out to you on that a little later on in the week. But circle the date. It's going to be at 7 o'clock on the 20th of March. We'll be swabbing for the bone marrow registry as well. We're waiting on that NFL schedule to come out. We got Nashville, Green Bay, all these big trips coming up. We'll be getting that stuff out. Minnesota as well when the schedule comes out, about 4 weeks from now. All right, I'm Nestor. This is WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.